Hello fellas, B.Jr. back here from the Endurance Productions YouTube channel, hanging in the cave. Going to do the second part to my two-parter on Westerns recommendations. Tonight we're going to talk about, remember I told you there were two subcategories, ones that have Clint Eastwood and ones that do not. Tonight we're going to talk about my favorite Clint Eastwood Westerns, which is just about every one he's ever done, just about, not all of them, but, well, I don't know, they're probably all here in some form or another. I love his films overall anyway. I mean, I've got tons of his little collection up there on the Clint Eastwood portion of my shelf up there. And I gotta be honest, the man acts about the same in a lot of his westerns, I have to be honest. He has a good stare about him. And, you can't like westerns anymore without having like one or two of his at least in your top 10 or top 25, somewhere in there. I'm going to tell you the ones that I like and just kind of go over the ones that are in my collection. And a lot of times these are just go-to favorites. I mean, if there's nothing else on and I just want to watch a Western, I can't make up my mind, I just throw in one of these. One of the Clint Eastwood Westerns, can't go wrong kind of deal. Of course, you can't talk about his earlier work in Westerns without at least noting the Sergio Leone Man with No Name trilogy. Fistful of Dollars. I'm going to recommend all three of these because they're just a good point to start, not only for Clint Eastwood Westerns, but also if you've never watched a spaghetti Western, an Italian-made Western. Basically, it's a good textbook way to get involved in spaghetti Westerns, in my opinion. Fistful of Dollars is where they started this trilogy. It is a little more low budget than the other two, but it does have that kind of offbeat humor that most spaghetti westerns have, and good action work, good suspense building in the film. It's basically Fistful of Dollars is a remake of the storyline of Yojimbo, or where he's a stranger wanders into town, and basically two warring families, he kind of pits them against each other and works them for the other side and makes money off of both of them. So I don't know. I enjoyed the sequel just about as much as the original for a few dollars more, starring, of course, Clint Eastwood and Lee Van Cleef in this one. And it's about bounty hunters in the Old West, and just about them trying to make a ton of money and chase down a bunch of bad guys while they're trying to rob a bank and all kinds of shenanigans. Really enjoyed that one too. The true gem of the trilogy is the last one, of course, the epic scale 3 hour plus, I guess you'd say. The Good, Bad, and the Ugly, the DVD special edition, which if anybody out there knows, this is a great special edition, but it's kind of a weird size case. It sticks out like a sore thumb. I also have the Blu-ray of this version, and I can honestly say if you're going to pick it up nowadays, go ahead and get the Blu-ray. You're going to get all the same special features, and it looks and sounds amazing. It looks and sounds great. Enough can't be said about the Good, Bad, and the Ugly. Ultra uber suspense building in this one. And all the shootouts are great. Rich characters in this one. The characterizations in the first two, all the characters are just kind of there, and it's just all story based. This one has a great story, has great characters. It really takes its time. I mean, probably a little more so than it should, but I always enjoyed The Good, Bad, and the Ugly. When Clint returned, he started doing his own style westerns. He made Hang 'em High. I think he did this one right after he did the Man with No Name trilogy. It's kind of your straightforward, run-of-the-mill Western from its day. I don't know. It's a decent Western, but it's not my favorite that he ever did, but I can watch it. It's not bad. It's kind of the American version of a Western for his time, for the late 60s time frame. His first, I think it's his first Western directorial. It's not his directorial debut, but it's his first Western that he directed, I think, was High Plains Drifter. And I think it's one of the few times he ever strayed from the Warner Brothers logo and went over to Universal. He did a few films with Universal during this time frame, and he's dabbled in Castle Rock and these other studios from time to time, but he's primarily a Warner Brothers studio kind of guy, so you can get about all his titles on Warner Brothers. But Universal picture, kind of a lower budget, but he stretched the dollar in this one. He really did a great job. This one has a supernatural aspect in it too, kind of a ghost story kind of thing weaved into the background of it. So I don't know, I always enjoy the characters in High Plains Drifter. Pretty decent film overall. These are in no specific order, mind you. How can we get through his westerns without at least noting the Unforgiven, Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, won a lot of Oscars, I think, and I also have this one on HD DVD, and I can honestly say if you can pick it up on Blu-ray or HD DVD, it's the way to go because this movie really lends itself to the HD format. Great characters, and I can honestly say it's one of the go-to westerns. It's one of the best westerns ever made, in my opinion. But mainly because of the characters, not so much because of the action and stuff like that's in the movie. There is some action in it and stuff like that, but it's the very matter-of-fact tone about what happens to people under the duress of the Old West and how they lived back then, that kind of thing. So, really enjoyed this film. I always enjoy revisiting Unforgiven every once in a while. Here's one that not a lot of people like. Some people like it, some people don't. It's the mid-'80s return to a Western that he did, Pale Rider. Again, a little supernatural aspect in this one. You'll be able to pick up on it as you watch it, but again, I think it's produced and directed by Clint Eastwood. It's kind of got that 80s vibe in the background of this one. It's about a mining community, and he's kind of an ex gun for hire that basically is hiding as a preacher that comes to the rescue, comes to them in their time of need, and has to put that aside to take revenge on to settle an old score. I'll say it that way. Pound for pound, probably my top three of all his westerns he ever did was The Outlaw Josie Wales. This movie started out with a different director, and Clint Eastwood took over the director reins whenever the project was looking to go south. And I think the original director was fired, and then they basically said, okay, Clint, you can take on and do the rest of the movie. And he did it and produced it, and I don't know, great project. I'm not sure if The Outlaw Josie Wales won any Oscars or anything like that, but it's got your typical Clint Eastwood late 70s, early 80s comedy worked into it too. So I don't know, it's got some very violent parts in the movie, but it still rings out with a PG rating. So I don't know how they swung that on this one, but they did. Anyway, this is a good version of it too. This is the Clint Eastwood collection, but it does have some good behind the scenes and introduction by Clint Eastwood, that type of thing. So I think this is one of those that's kind of close to Clint's heart in terms of making the movie and all. I really enjoy this one. It's in my top three all-time Clint Eastwood westerns ever. I threw this one in for giggles. I don't know why. It's kind of like it's a comedy basically, and it bombed. I think it's one of his few bombs he's ever made. It's Bronco Billy. I mean, hey, it's not really an old West Western, but he's a Western carnival kind of guy, and basically, it's just a funny movie. I don't know. It plays like a Western because he's trying to live like he was back in the old West days in modern times. I don't know. It's really not a Western, guys, but I threw it in there just for laughs. Bronco Billy, not the greatest film ever. I can understand why they don't have any special features on it because it's kind of a bomb, but it's still, I don't know, still a likable movie. It's a lot of his favorite actors that show up in a lot of his films show up in this one too from that era, so threw that one in there just for laughs. This has been B. West's Clint Eastwood recommendations. I don't think you can go wrong with any of these films if you want to get into watching westerns for the first time and or spaghetti westerns. Start with his Man with No Name trilogy. Been a long day, can't talk tonight, sorry about that. But I hope you guys have enjoyed the westerns recommendations. It's just my little personal way of saying, hey, if you want to watch a western, these are the ones I think you should watch. Rock on, guys, and I'll see you next time.